I sipped my coffee across from Mia, my sister, as she scrolled through her phone, barely paying attention. She looked unusually happy, her face slightly flushed, with a small, secretive smile she tried to hide. Usually we'd be laughing and catching up, but something felt off today. Mia's phone was buzzing almost every minute, and she would quickly glance at it, type something, and put it back down, only for it to buzz again moments later. Mia, I said, trying to catch her attention. Who's blowing up your phone? Oh, no one, she replied quickly, her voice a little too high-pitched, almost as if she were hiding something. I laughed it off, brushing away the strange feeling that crept up on me. After all, Mia and I had always been close, sharing everything since we were kids. She was my confidant, my best friend. If something were really going on, she would tell me, right? In any other situation, I wouldn't have given it a second thought. But lately, there had been this gnawing feeling in my gut. James, my boyfriend of 2 years, had been acting distant. He'd been taking calls in another room, texting when he thought I wasn't looking, and canceling plans last minute with vague excuses about work. Normally, I wouldn't have questioned it, but combined with Mia's strange behavior, I started to feel like there was something I was missing. James and I had met at a friend's birthday party. He was charming, funny, and seemed to know exactly what to say to make me laugh. We hit it off right away, and before I knew it, we were inseparable. My friends envied our relationship, calling us the perfect couple. To me, he was more than just a boyfriend. He was my partner, my confidant, the one person I thought would never hurt me. After finishing her coffee, Mia quickly excused herself, saying she had an errand to run. She barely met my eyes as she got up, and her phone continued buzzing in her bag as she rushed out. I watched her go, feeling the strange pang of doubt growing stronger. What was I missing? Why were the two people I trusted most acting so strange? I left the cafe feeling unsettled, replaying our conversation in my head. Part of me wanted to brush it off as paranoia, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The next time I saw James, I paid closer attention to his behavior. He seemed distant, distracted, as if his mind was somewhere else entirely. Is everything okay? I asked him one night as we watched a movie at my apartment. Huh? Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't it be? He replied, but he wouldn't look at me. He had that same distant look in his eyes, and every now and then, his hand would twitch towards his phone, like he was waiting for a message. I couldn't bring myself to confront him. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe it was just a rough patch, and I was letting my insecurities get the best of me. But the doubt continued to linger, growing stronger with each passing day. A week later, I was at James's place. He had stepped into the shower, leaving his phone on the coffee table. It buzzed, displaying a new message from Mia. My heart stopped, my mind racing as I stared at his phone. The message preview showed a single line, "Can't wait to see you again. Miss you already." I felt the world tilt around me. My heart pounded, a mix of fear and fury coursing through my veins. I picked up his phone, staring at the message in disbelief. Mia? James? No, there had to be an explanation. I was jumping to conclusions, wasn't I? But deep down, I already knew. That tiny seed of doubt that had been growing over the past few weeks had finally taken root, and it was blooming into full-blown heartbreak. My hands shook as I put his phone back down, the weight of betrayal settling over me like a thick, suffocating fog. I sat there, feeling paralyzed. How could they? How could James, the man I trusted with all my heart, betray me like this? And with Mia, my own sister? The thought was unbearable, a twisted nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I tried to stay calm as I waited for him to finish his shower, but inside, I was breaking. When he finally came out, wrapped in a towel, I forced myself to look at him, fighting the urge to scream. I wanted answers, but I didn't know how to begin. Should I confront him now? Or wait until I had more proof? Taking a shaky breath, I decided to hold off, at least for the moment. I needed time to process this, to figure out what to do. But one thing was clear, the perfect picture I had painted of my life with James and Mia was nothing more than a lie. The trust one had in both of them had been shattered, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be rebuilt. I left his apartment that night, my mind spinning, my heart aching. I didn't know where to go or what to do. All I knew was that my life would never be the same. The betrayal cut deep, and as I drove home, tears streaming down my face, I realized that the people I had trusted most had become the ones I feared most. I was left alone, with only my broken heart and unanswered questions. The following days were torture. My mind replayed the message from Mia on James's phone over and over. I could hardly eat or sleep, the betrayal seeping into every part of my life. I kept going back and forth, debating whether I should confront them or gather more evidence first. I needed to be certain, even though my heart already knew the truth. After hours of deliberation, I decided to confront James. If he was honest, maybe I could find some way to understand. Maybe he'd tell me it was a misunderstanding, something small that had gotten blown out of proportion. As painful as the thought was, I needed to hear it from him. I called him over to my apartment the next evening. The moment he walked in, I felt a wave of nausea. His casual smile, the ease with which he greeted me, it all felt like a cruel joke. How could he act so normal, knowing what he'd done? I forced myself to stay calm, masking the storm of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. "James," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "I need to talk to you about something important." "Sure," he said, sitting down on the couch across from me. His smile faded as he looked at me, sensing my seriousness. "What's up?" Taking a deep breath, I looked him straight in the eyes. "Are you seeing someone else?" The question hung heavy in the air between us. For a moment, he looked taken aback, as if he hadn't expected me to ask so directly. But then I saw something flicker in his expression, a hint of guilt, maybe fear. "What?" "No," he stammered, but he couldn't meet my gaze. His eyes darted around the room, his hands fidgeting nervously. "Why would you ask that?" "Because I saw a message on your phone," I said, my voice trembling with barely restrained anger. "A message from Mia. She said she misses you already and can't wait to see you again." "Care to explain that?" James went pale, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. He was caught, and he knew it. The silence stretched on, and the anger inside me began to grow. He didn't even have the decency to come clean right away. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen." Those words hit me like a physical blow. "A mistake? You didn't mean for it to happen." My voice rose, incredulous. "How does that even work, James? You just accidentally started seeing my sister." "It was a moment of weakness, I swear," he said, his voice desperate. "I love you. I've always loved you. It didn't mean anything. It just happened." I laughed bitterly, my hands clenching into fists. "Didn't mean anything? You betrayed me with my own sister, James. Do you even understand what you've done?" He reached out, as if to touch my hand, but I pulled away. His face crumpled, and for a moment I saw something that resembled remorse. But it wasn't enough, not after everything he'd put me through. "Why Mia?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "Of all people, why her?" He hesitated, struggling to find the words. "It wasn't planned," he said finally, his voice hollow. "We were just hanging out one day and I don't know, things got out of hand. I didn't want to hurt you, I swear. But you did, James. You hurt me in the worst possible way." I felt the tears start to fall, and I didn't bother to wipe them away. "And you're standing here, trying to tell me it didn't mean anything? That it was just a moment of weakness?" He lowered his head, unable to meet my gaze. For a brief moment, I saw the man I thought I knew, the one who had been my rock, my partner, the one I thought would always have my back. But that image shattered as I looked at him now, a stranger who had torn my world apart. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely audible. "I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what to say." "There's nothing you can say, James." My voice was cold, each word laced with the pain he had caused. "You chose to betray me. You chose Mia over me." He looked up, his eyes filled with regret. "Please, just give me a chance to make it right." I shook my head, feeling the last remnants of my love for him crumble. There's no making this right, James. Not after what you've done. He reached out again, his hand trembling. Please. But I couldn't stay there any longer. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone in my living room. The weight of his betrayal pressed down on me, suffocating, but I knew I couldn't let him see how much he had broken me. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had lost the person I thought I could trust more than anyone in the world. But I still had a long way to go before I could even think about healing. And somewhere deep inside, a new resolve began to grow. James and Mia may have broken my heart, but I wasn't about to let them destroy me. A few days passed before I gathered the courage to confront Mia. I needed time to process the pain, the betrayal, and all the questions that had been swirling around my mind since James admitted the affair. I'd spent sleepless nights wondering how my own sister, my best friend since childhood, could betray me like this. I was filled with anger and sadness, but most of all, I was determined to hear her side. I needed answers, closure, something to help me understand why she would do this to me. When I finally decided to confront her, I texted her, asking her to meet me at our favorite coffee shop. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was the place where we'd shared countless laughs and secrets, never imagining that we'd end up here, in this mess. She replied quickly, her tone cheerful as if nothing were wrong, which only deepened my anger. How could she pretend that everything was normal? I arrived early, my mind racing as I waited. I didn't know exactly what I would say, but I knew I needed to remain calm, to keep control of my emotions. She arrived a few minutes later, smiling as she walked in, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. Hey, Mia greeted me with her usual enthusiasm, taking a seat across from me. What's up? You sounded serious in your text. I took a deep breath, meeting her gaze with a steely resolve. Mia, I know about you and James. The smile fell from her face instantly. Her eyes widened, and she looked down, unable to meet my gaze. She knew exactly what I was talking about. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Don't lie to me, Mia, I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of hurt and anger. I saw the text you sent him. Can't wait to see you again. Miss you already. Do you really think I wouldn't find out? She looked up, her face flushed with guilt, but she didn't say anything. The silence between us was heavy, almost unbearable, as if every unspoken word was suffocating us both. Finally, she took a deep breath, her hands shaking as she clasped them on the table. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered, echoing James's words. It just happened. Stop saying that, I snapped, my voice laced with frustration. It didn't just happen, Mia. You made a choice. You chose to betray me. Do you have any idea how much this has hurt me? Her eyes filled with tears, and she reached out as if to touch my hand, but I pulled back. I couldn't bear to let her touch me, not after what she had done. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I never wanted to hurt you, I swear. It was a stupid, horrible mistake, and I wish I could take it back. Then why did you do it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why, Mia? You're my sister. I trusted you more than anyone in the world, and you threw that all away. For what? She wiped her tears, struggling to find the right words. I don't know, she admitted. I was feeling lonely, and James was there. We just started talking more, and one thing led to another. I wasn't thinking about you, about us, and I hate myself for it. Her confession cut deep, each word like a knife to my heart. Part of me wanted to believe her, to forgive her, but the pain was still too raw, too fresh. Do you love him? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop myself. It was a ridiculous thought, but part of me needed to know if there was any deeper reason behind this betrayal. She shook her head quickly. No, I don't. It was never about that. It was just a horrible, stupid mistake. I've ruined everything, and I don't know how to fix it. I sighed, feeling the weight of her words settle over me like a heavy blanket. She looked genuinely remorseful, but that didn't change the fact that she'd broken my trust in the worst possible way. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, I said, my voice trembling. You were my sister, my best friend, and now I don't even know who you are. Her face crumpled, fresh tears streaming down her cheeks. I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me, not after what I did. But please, just know that I am so sorry. The vulnerability in her voice tugged at something deep inside me, a part of me that still loved her despite everything. But I knew that forgiveness wouldn't come easily. This wasn't something that could be patched up with a simple apology. I stood up, unable to bear the sight of her tears any longer. I need some time to process all of this. I don't know what our relationship will look like after this, but right now, I just need space. She nodded, not arguing or trying to convince me otherwise. I understand, she whispered, her voice filled with regret. I'll give you all the time you need. Just, please know that I'm here whenever you're ready to talk. I turned to leave, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness wash over me. As much as I wanted to cut her out of my life entirely, I knew it wouldn't be that simple. She was my sister, my family, and a part of me still cared about her despite the pain she'd caused. As I walked away, I felt a strange sense of closure. I didn't have all the answers, but I had finally confronted her, finally heard the truth. It didn't make the pain go away, but it was a start. James and Mia had betrayed me in the worst possible way, but I was determined to move forward, to find healing and peace on my own terms. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I was strong enough to face it, one step at a time. After that confrontation with Mia, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, but also a strange sense of relief. The truth was out. There was no more guessing, no more wondering if I was being paranoid. She admitted it, and though the betrayal still hurt like nothing else, I finally felt free to focus on my own healing without any more lies clouding my mind. In the days that followed, I kept my distance from both James and Mia. It felt strange to go from talking to them every day to complete silence, but I needed this separation. I needed time and space to regain my sense of self, to remember who I was before all of this happened. I decided to throw myself into work and my hobbies. I picked up painting again, something I'd loved as a teenager but hadn't had time for in years. I found that the quiet rhythm of the brush on the canvas was oddly therapeutic, allowing me to focus on something beautiful instead of the chaos in my life. Each stroke of color was like a small victory, a reminder that I still had control over some parts of my life, even if others were in disarray. My friends rallied around me too, offering their support without pushing me to talk about what happened. They'd seen the toll the breakup had taken on me, but they respected my need for space and let me lead the conversations when I was ready. Their presence was a quiet strength in my life, a reminder that not everyone would hurt or betray me. One evening, I received a message from Mia. It had been a few weeks since we last spoke, and I was surprised to see her name flash on my screen. I hesitated before opening it, my heart pounding as I wondered what she could possibly want. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from right now, she wrote. But I just wanted to say I'm truly sorry again. I don't expect forgiveness, but I miss you. You're my sister, and it breaks my heart that I hurt you like this. If there's ever a chance to make things right, I'll be here. I stared at the message, feeling a lump rise in my throat. A part of me wanted to respond, to tell her that I missed her too despite everything, but another part of me knew that I wasn't ready. I couldn't just let her back into my life after what she'd done, not without some serious time to heal. I put my phone down without replying, deciding that I would respond when I felt ready, not when she was. Several months passed, and as time went on, I felt myself gradually healing. The pain was still there, but it didn't control me like it once had. I'd rebuilt parts of my life, and I felt stronger than ever. One evening, out of the blue, I ran into James at a mutual friend's party. I hadn't seen him since everything had fallen apart, and the sight of him brought a wave of emotions I wasn't prepared for. He looked surprised to see me too, but he quickly composed himself and approached me. "Hey, Emma," he said, his voice hesitant, almost apologetic. "Hi," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I wasn't sure if I wanted to have a conversation with him, but a part of me also felt that this could be the closure I needed. "Can we talk for a second?" he asked, gesturing toward a quieter corner of the room. I agreed, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. I was no longer the heartbroken person I'd been all those months ago, and I wanted him to see that. When we were alone, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. I just want to say I'm sorry, he began. I messed up, and I know that. I hurt you, and I hate myself for it. I nodded, appreciating his honesty, but not feeling much sympathy. I know, James. I've had a lot of time to think, and I'm honestly just focused on moving on now. He looked down, as if he hadn't expected me to be so calm. I don't expect anything from you, he said quietly. I just wanted you to know that if I could take it back, I would. Losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. I met his gaze, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. I appreciate you saying that, but we both made choices that led us here. I've grown from it, and I hope you do too. With that, I walked away, leaving him standing alone. I realized that I'd finally let go of the anger and pain that had been holding me back. I was free from the weight of our past, ready to embrace the future on my own terms. After months of keeping my distance, I finally felt ready to talk to Mia again. The anger had faded somewhat, replaced by a sense of longing for the bond we'd once shared. She was my sister, and despite the betrayal, I wanted to believe there was a path forward. I couldn't say for sure what it would look like, but I was willing to try. I texted her, asking if she'd like to meet up. Within minutes, she replied, her response filled with gratitude and relief. We agreed to meet at the same coffee shop where we'd had our confrontation months before. This time, I felt different, a bit stronger, a bit more in control. When she walked in, Mia looked nervous, her gaze darting around before finally landing on me. She looked almost hesitant, as though she were afraid I'd change my mind and walk out at any moment. I waved her over, offering a small smile, and she breathed a sigh of relief as she took the seat across from me. Thank you for meeting me, she began, her voice quiet but sincere. I know I don't deserve it, and I'll spend my life regretting what I did to you. I took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. I know you're sorry, Mia, and I appreciate it. But I need you to understand that this isn't something I can just forget. It changed everything. She nodded, her eyes filled with regret. I understand. I'm not expecting things to go back to the way they were. I miss you. I miss us. Her words hit me hard, reminding me of all the good memories we'd shared, memories that had been tainted by her actions. But as I sat there, I realized that those memories still held value. She was still my sister, and while I couldn't pretend that everything was okay, I was willing to try to rebuild something new. I miss you too, I admitted, my voice softer than I'd intended. But if we're going to try this, it has to be honest. No more lies, no more secrets. She nodded eagerly, relief washing over her face. I promise, Emma. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. We spent the next few hours talking, not about James or the betrayal, but about everything else. We laughed, reminisced, and slowly began to reconnect. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a fragile bridge over the chasm that her actions had created. And for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope that we could find our way back to each other, one step at a time. As the months went by, I found myself moving forward in ways I hadn't thought possible. My relationship with Mia was still a work in progress, but we were taking small steps, rebuilding trust little by little. I didn't know if we'd ever be as close as we once were, but I was okay with that. We were both growing, and that was enough. One afternoon, as I was organizing my apartment, I came across an old photo of me, Mia, and James, taken at a time when everything felt simple and happy. I stared at it for a long moment, a mixture of sadness and nostalgia filling my chest. But instead of letting it drag me down, I found myself smiling. Those memories, though tainted, were still a part of my life's journey. They had shaped me, taught me lessons I hadn't known I needed to learn. I took the photo, tucked it into a drawer, and closed it, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. A few weeks later, I went to a party with some friends, feeling more like myself than I had in a long time. I was laughing, dancing, and simply enjoying the night when I met someone new. Her name was Sophia, and she had this warm smile and a kindness in her eyes that made me feel at ease. We started talking, sharing stories about our lives, and I felt a spark that I hadn't felt in a long time. There was no pressure, no expectations, just two people connecting, genuinely and honestly. As the night went on, I found myself smiling more than I had in ages. I didn't know where things with Sophia would go, but for the first time, I felt open to the possibilities. I wasn't held back by the pain of the past. Instead, I was looking forward, embracing the future with a newfound sense of hope. In that moment, I realized that I'd come full circle. I'd been hurt, broken, and betrayed, but I'd emerged stronger, ready to rebuild my life on my own terms. And no matter what happened next, I knew that I was going to be okay.